My fiancée partied with strangers during her trip while I saved for our future, so I called off everything instantly and left her begging for answers she'll never hear. I'm a 29-year-old guy, and for most of my life, I believed that loyalty could hold a relationship together. I thought if I showed up, worked hard, and sacrificed quietly, that would be enough, that love could survive on trust and commitment alone. Lily, my fiancée, was ambitious, charming, and magnetic. Everyone at work seemed to adore her. She constantly complained about being underpaid, how her job didn't value her, and I always told her I'd handle the bills while she focused on climbing the ladder. Rent, groceries, utilities, little emergencies, everything somehow fell on me, and I never minded. I believed supporting her dreams was part of love, even if it meant long hours and late nights at work, staring at spreadsheets and bank balances while she talked about her next big project or important meeting she couldn't miss. Most days, it felt like a balancing act. I'd come home exhausted, smelling faintly of coffee and fast food from a 12-hour shift, and Lily would be on her laptop bag half open, phone buzzing constantly. There were moments when I noticed her flick her screen away a little too quickly when I walked in, or a slight flinch when her phone rang. She became unusually protective of her device, tucking it into corners, muting notifications, even claiming she had confidential work messages she couldn't share. At first, I brushed it off. I told myself I was imagining things. I've always believed trust was a cornerstone of any serious relationship. I would lie awake some nights, watching her scroll or type, hearing laughter from the other end of the line, wondering who she was talking to. My stomach would tighten, but I'd push it down, telling myself that she's under stress, that she's juggling her career, and that I should just give her space. Every red flag I saw, I rationalized. Small stuff, not worth ruining a good thing over. I wanted to believe that loyalty and my unwavering support were enough to keep us together. I wanted to believe that love could survive if I simply worked hard and trusted her completely. And so, I kept pouring everything into our future, my money, my time, my energy, while whispering to myself that maybe one day she'd see it, appreciate it, and reciprocate in ways I couldn't yet imagine. But deep down, I felt the tiniest prickle of unease, the faintest sense that something wasn't quite right, even if I couldn't put my finger on it. I shrugged it off. After all, I had always believed that love meant trusting the person you cared about, no matter what. Then came the week that would start unraveling everything I thought I knew. I kept working longer hours, taking extra shifts just to make sure we could afford the life we were planning. Every paycheck I saved, I tucked away carefully, dreaming of our future apartment, a small backyard maybe, and a life where we wouldn't have to stress over bills. I thought of every sacrifice as an investment, not just financially, but emotionally. I carried the weight quietly, convincing myself it was part of being a good partner. Meanwhile, Lily seemed busier than ever, always juggling meetings, networking events, and what she called career-building trips. I'd ask her about them, casually, just trying to stay involved, and she'd smile, give me a quick hug, and say, "Don't worry about me, I've got it handled." Most of the time, that was enough. But sometimes, late at night when I was exhausted and the apartment was quiet, I'd notice her phone light up on the counter. She'd snatch it up a little too fast, eyes darting away. A laugh, a quick text, a muted notification. It all felt tiny, harmless maybe, but it gnawed at me. I found myself checking the time she returned from meetings, remembering vague stories she'd told me about her colleagues or travel schedules. I told myself repeatedly, trust, patience, loyalty. That's all love needs. I'd pour a cup of coffee, lean against the counter, and think about how much I was giving without complaint. I didn't tell her about the tightness in my chest, the anxiety that crept in when her answers didn't quite match the stories. She's under pressure, I whispered to myself. She's doing important work. She's stressed. I just have to support her. And so, I supported her, always covering the bills she said she couldn't, always planning, always believing. But little cracks were forming in my certainty. Friends would mention seeing her out with coworkers after hours, and she'd always have an excuse ready, dismissing it lightly. Something in my gut told me not everything was as it seemed, yet I kept brushing it off. I wanted to believe loyalty was enough, that trust would shield us from any storm, but that nagging feeling, that shadow of doubt, was growing, and I had no idea just how right it was, because the trip she was planning next was going to change everything. I remember the day she told me about her upcoming trip. She bounced into the apartment, laptop bag slung over her shoulder, practically glowing with excitement. "It's just a networking event," she said, tapping her phone. "But it's a whole week, and I'll meet so many important people. You'll be proud of me." I forced a smile, hiding the knot in my stomach. A week? That seemed long for a networking event, but I pushed the thought aside. "Of course," I said. "Go make those connections. I'll hold down the fort here." I spent that week working extra shifts, running errands, making sure everything at home was in order, imagining her shining at her career while I kept us afloat. Nights were the hardest. The apartment felt too quiet, almost empty without her, and the faint click of her phone notifications haunted me. I told myself repeatedly that I was being paranoid. She was just working, meeting people, networking. That's all. Trust her. Loyalty. That's what love is, right? But small things started stacking up. Her Instagram stories popped up. Coffee meetings, casual dinners, laughs with colleagues, but some faces I didn't recognize. I'd squint, trying to make sense of the captions and locations. Each time I asked her casually about it, she brushed it off with a smile. "Oh, just coworkers. You wouldn't know them. Don't worry about it." I wanted to believe her. I really did. I began noticing changes in her tone over messages. Quick replies, cryptic words, emojis that felt flirtatious. My chest tightened each time I caught a hint of something off, but I pushed it down, telling myself, "Don't be jealous, don't overthink, trust your fiancé." I even laughed at myself for doubting her. After all, I'd always been the responsible one, the one who worked, planned, and saved. Loyalty was my superpower. Yet that week, the unease lingered like smoke in the room, subtle, persistent, and growing. Something about her energy, the way she avoided video calls, the little slips in her stories, made my gut churn. I couldn't shake it. And deep down, I had the sense that this trip wasn't just about networking. Something was simmering beneath the surface, and I had no idea how badly it would burn. Because when she returned, nothing would be the same. When Lily finally came back, I thought I'd feel relief, like the storm had passed. Instead, there was this strange air between us, heavy and unspoken. She walked in, suitcase in hand, hair a little messy, perfume lingering, smiling like nothing had happened. "Hey," she said, brushing past me. "You won't believe how amazing this trip was. I met so many incredible people, and the city was just..." She trailed off, eyes darting to her phone like it held secrets. I tried to catch her gaze, searching for that familiar warmth, the honesty I trusted. But something felt off. Her laughter was too quick, too bright, as if it were rehearsed. I asked casually, "Did you get a lot done with the networking?" and she waved a hand, dismissing it. Oh, some. But mostly it was just amazing people, new experiences. The words felt hollow. The longer she spoke, the more my stomach twisted, like I could taste something bitter in the air. Over the next couple of days, I tried to bridge the gap. I cooked, cleaned, and asked her about the trip, piece by piece, hoping to feel close again. But she became evasive, checking her phone constantly, stepping out to call a friend or grab something quickly. Her tone was light, teasing even, but every little dodge set off alarms in my mind. I started noticing tiny inconsistencies, names she mentioned, places she claimed to visit, times that didn't line up. I wanted to confront her, to ask directly, but I kept brushing it off. Maybe I'm imagining it, I told myself. Maybe this is just stress, jet lag, something small. I kept working, keeping the apartment running, saving money for our future, believing that loyalty and trust could patch over the cracks. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. Something vital had broken while I wasn't looking. And I had a sinking feeling that what I was about to discover would change everything. It was only a few days after Lily got back that I started seeing things I couldn't ignore. Social media posts, photos tagged in places I had never heard of her mentioning, laughter and drinks with people who weren't her coworkers. It all felt off. I remember scrolling through her Instagram one night, coffee in hand, heart tightening with every scroll. A video popped up, Lily dancing in a crowded bar, a group of strangers pressed around her, her laughter ringing out like it belonged to someone else. My stomach dropped, and I almost dropped my phone. I replayed it again, trying to convince myself it was just innocent fun, maybe a celebratory night after the conference. But something about the way she leaned into one of the strangers, the hand resting on his shoulder, the way she kept glancing down at her phone. It was familiar, too familiar. My chest tightened, and my hands shook a little. I told myself, don't overreact, don't overthink. It's nothing. Just networking, just friends. But the voice in my gut was louder than ever, screaming that I was seeing the truth. I confronted her gently the next morning. Hey, can we talk about that night? Her eyes flicked away, her smile a little too quick, a little too practiced. What night? She asked. Her voice had a lightness to it, almost playful, like she was dodging the weight of it. The party. The video I saw. Who were they? My voice was quieter than I wanted, but it carried the hurt I couldn't hide. She shrugged. Just some people from the trip. It was nothing, really. You're reading too much into it. But I couldn't. I couldn't unsee the laughter, the closeness, the way she moved with them, like she belonged there more than she did at home with me. The betrayal clawed at my chest, sharp and relentless. I realized then that loyalty, saving every penny, covering every bill, trusting blindly, it hadn't protected me. And the worst part? I had no idea how deep this went, because what I would find out next would completely shatter the world I had built for us. That night, I couldn't sleep. My chest ached, my mind replaying every laugh, every glance, every tiny detail from her trip. Finally, I gave in. I opened her Instagram, scrolling past filtered photos, smiling selfies, and carefully curated stories. And then I found it. Proof that made my heart stop. A video, unlisted, saved to her account, showing Lily at a stranger's apartment, laughing, leaning close, whispering. The way her hand rested on his arm, the way she looked at him. It wasn't casual. It was intimate. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours, my coffee going cold beside me. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach and kicked while I was down. The trust I had built everything on, the loyalty, the endless sacrifices, The long hours at work to make sure she didn't worry had been thrown back in my face. I wanted to scream, to smash the laptop, to wake her up and demand the truth, but I couldn't. My hands trembled, my throat felt tight, and tears burned at the corners of my eyes. The next morning, I confronted her. My voice was quiet, controlled, but every word was heavy with the weight of betrayal. "I saw the video," I said, barely above a whisper. She froze, her smile faltering, eyes widening. "What video?" she asked, panic threading her voice. "Don't lie. Don't even try," I said, my heart hammering. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes and a crack in the facade I had always trusted. She stammered, trying to explain, fumbling through excuses, calling it just a bit of fun, harmless flirting, stress relief from the trip. But her words rang hollow, empty echoes against the reality of what I had just seen. I realized, in that moment, that the person I thought I knew, the person I had been saving and sacrificing for, was someone entirely different. Someone I could no longer trust. And in that instant, I knew. Everything I had built, every plan for our future, every cent I had saved, it had all been for nothing. After that confrontation, the apartment felt different. Cold, heavy, suffocating. Lily tried to act normal, but I could see the cracks. She kept checking her phone, laughing a little too loudly at messages, brushing past me when I asked about simple things. Every time she spoke, I heard dishonesty in the pauses, in the way she avoided my eyes. I wanted to scream, to make her admit everything, but I held myself back. I had loved her, trusted her, invested in her dreams, and now I felt like a fool. I started retracing her steps from the trip, talking to friends she'd mentioned casually, trying to piece together what she had been doing. Each story conflicted with the last. The places she had networked were bars, lounges, apartments, not offices or conference rooms. People laughed when I asked casually about her. They remembered her clearly, and the way she leaned, the way she joked, the way she flirted. It all matched the video I'd seen. My stomach churned every time I heard another confirmation. One night, I finally confronted her again. "I know exactly what you did," I said, my voice low, controlled but trembling. She froze, her eyes wide, lips parted. "You don't understand," she started, but I cut her off. "No, I understand perfectly. You lied to me. You used my trust. You used me while I was working to make sure you didn't have to worry about anything. Every shift, every penny, every plan, it meant nothing to you." Her face paled. For the first time, I saw genuine fear, not the playful deflection I had tolerated before. She started again, but I walked away. I couldn't look at her without seeing the betrayal etched across her smile. Every word she had spoken over the past months now sounded like lies I had paid for. And in that moment, I realized, no matter what she said, nothing could undo what had been done. I sat alone that night, listening to the quiet hum of the apartment, heart pounding, chest tight, feeling the weight of everything I had given and lost. And I knew then that I had a choice. Let her continue or end it all before it got any worse. I hit rock bottom that night. I sat on the edge of the couch, head in my hands, staring at the dim glow of the streetlights outside the window. Everything I had worked for, every long shift, every sacrifice, every careful dollar saved, felt like it had been poured into a void. I had trusted her completely, built our future around her, and in return, I had been lied to, used, humiliated in the quietest, cruelest way. My chest ached, my mind raced, and I couldn't stop thinking about all the times I had smiled, believing I was building something real. I replayed moments in my head, her laughter, her casual touches, her excuses about work. Every memory now stung like acid. I remembered telling her, "I've got this, don't worry about anything," and realizing she had never cared about that promise. My phone sat next to me, buzzing endlessly with messages I didn't want to read. "Please, I can explain," one text said. Another, "Don't do this to us." I wanted to reply, to scream, to beg her to tell the truth, but I couldn't. I couldn't let her see how broken I felt, not when she had caused it. I felt utterly alone, even though she was right there in the apartment. The betrayal weighed on me like a physical force, pressing down on my shoulders, tightening my chest, making it hard to breathe. I thought about all the nights I had stayed up worrying about bills, about her comfort, about our future, and how all of that meant nothing to her. The person I had trusted most, the one I had invested in, had used me, and that realization, cold and sharp, left me shaking. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, numb, letting the silence envelope me. And in that silence, one thought burned clear in my mind. I couldn't stay. I couldn't let her continue. Not for another second. Whatever I was going to do next, it had to be decisive. Because after this, nothing would ever be the same. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. I knew exactly what I had to do. I couldn't let her continue as if nothing had happened. I walked into the kitchen, my hands still shaking slightly, coffee untouched on the counter. Lily looked up, smiling brightly, hair tousled, like nothing had changed. I took a deep breath and said, "We need to talk. Everything ends here." Her smile faltered. "What do you mean?" she asked, voice trembling. "I can explain." "No," I said firmly, cutting her off. "There's nothing to explain. I trusted you. I worked my ass off for us. I saved every penny, stayed up late, planned for our future. And you used that. You lied to me. You betrayed me." Her face went pale, eyes wide, panic creeping in. I didn't mean," she started, but I shook my head. "I don't want to hear it. I don't want calls, texts, excuses, or apologies. I'm done." I walked past her, grabbing my keys and wallet. She followed me, voice rising. "Wait, please, don't do this. I can explain everything." But I didn't stop. I couldn't. Every step I took out the door felt like shedding a layer of the pain she had wrapped around me for months. I left her standing there, suitcase still in the corner, phone buzzing relentlessly, face pale and desperate. Outside, the city felt strangely alive, the cool air filling my lungs, waking me up from the numbness. For the first time in weeks, I felt power, clarity, and control. I didn't feel the anger anymore, not fully. I felt relief, a lightness I hadn't known I was missing. Lily's texts continued to pour in. Her frantic calls went unanswered, and I realized just how little control she had over me now. And as I walked away from the apartment, leaving everything behind, I knew one thing for certain. Loyalty alone isn't enough. Trust can't survive without respect. And I would never let someone take that from me again. The days after I left were surreal. I came back to an apartment that felt emptier than ever, even though I hadn't lived there for more than a few hours. Lily's texts and missed calls piled up, frantic, desperate, begging for answers, explanations, any kind of interaction. I didn't respond. Every time my phone buzzed, I felt a surge of satisfaction, knowing I no longer owed her anything. The power she had once held over my life, the control through my trust and loyalty, was gone. Friends started noticing the shift too. "Are you okay?" they'd ask, cautious, like they were afraid I might crumble. But I wasn't crumbling. I was building. I invested the energy I had spent worrying about her into myself. I worked longer hours, yes, but differently now. With focus, with purpose. not to prop someone else up. I went for long runs, cleared my head, and let the anger and betrayal fuel me instead of consuming me. I caught glimpses of Lily online, trying to craft a narrative, posting vague messages about heartbreak, about misunderstandings, about learning from mistakes. It made me smile. For the first time in months, I wasn't reacting. I was observing, detached, untouchable. The world she had controlled through lies and charm had no power over me anymore. I didn't need to defend myself, explain, or beg for her honesty. I was free. And in the silence of my apartment, with the hum of the city outside, I realized something profound. I had reclaimed myself. The future I had envisioned, once tied to someone else's deceit, was now entirely mine to rebuild. Every plan, every dream, every penny saved was mine to invest in me. And the thought made my chest swell with a quiet, hard-earned pride. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't words, isn't confrontation. It's walking away, reclaiming your life, and letting the other person realize what they lost when it's too late. Weeks passed, and life began to feel steady again, quiet but not empty. I started noticing the little things I had ignored before. The sunlight streaming through the windows, the calm of an apartment that was finally mine, the peace of being able to plan without someone else's deception shadowing every decision. I poured energy into hobbies I'd abandoned, into friends I'd neglected while worrying about Lily, and into projects I had put on hold. Each day, I felt the weight of betrayal lighten, replaced by a clarity I hadn't known in years. I thought about all the sacrifices I had made. Long shifts, late nights, careful budgeting, all for someone who didn't value them. And then I realized I had done all of that not for her, but for me. I had proven to myself that I could be loyal, responsible, and committed. The fact that she didn't deserve it didn't diminish my worth. It just highlighted her failure. I learned that trust and loyalty are gifts, not guarantees. Sometimes I caught glimpses of her online, trying to reach out subtly, posting vague hints about growth or regret. It didn't hurt anymore. I didn't feel anger or jealousy. I felt power, control over my own life. I had walked away, set boundaries, and refused to let someone else's lies dictate my happiness. And that, more than anything, was freedom. I also learned to be cautious. Yes, but not cynical. I understood the difference between blind trust and earned trust. I could give love again, carefully, deliberately, and without sacrificing myself. And I felt stronger, wiser, and more in tune with who I was. Sitting on my balcony one evening, watching the sun dip below the skyline, I smiled. The pain hadn't vanished completely, but it had transformed. It had become fuel, guidance, and a reminder that sometimes walking away is the ultimate act of love for yourself. And I knew, without a doubt, that I would never let anyone diminish my worth like that again. Months later, life had settled into a rhythm I hadn't known for years. I woke up without dread, worked without distraction, and spent evenings surrounded by friends, laughter, and quiet peace. I realized how much energy I had wasted worrying about someone who didn't deserve it, and it made me appreciate the calm I now had. Every penny I had saved, every late night I had endured, every plan I had made for a future with her, those things weren't wasted. They had built me into someone who could stand alone, who could reclaim control, who could thrive despite betrayal. Sometimes I think about Lily. I hear rumors through mutual friends, vague posts online about her dating, her life, her attempts to reconcile or explain herself, but it doesn't affect me. I've walked away from the pain she caused, and in doing so, I've walked toward myself. The freedom, the clarity, the pride I feel, it's unmatched. I've rebuilt everything she tried to tarnish, and I did it on my own terms. I also learned the quiet satisfaction of boundaries. I don't need to punish her. I don't need to explain myself. The truth is, she's the one who lost. Her actions spoke louder than any words I could ever say. And that knowledge is enough. It's a strange kind of closure. No dramatic confrontation, no shouting, no public spectacle. Just the quiet, unshakable understanding that I am free, I am whole, and I am enough. As I sit on my balcony watching the city lights flicker on, I feel something I haven't felt in years. Peace. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the anger, they're all still there, shadows in the corners. But they no longer control me. They fuel me, remind me of my strength, and guide me in living deliberately. Because sometimes the best ending isn't revenge. It's rising, walking away, and letting the other person realize too late what they destroyed. And for the first time in my life, I feel truly untouchable.